Welcome to Dino Park Media. My name is Samuel, and today we have a very special video today talking about the security measures of Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. And joining me today is our special guest, Chaz. Chaz, why don't you go ahead and say hello?
Hello, everyone.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Chaz, man, this is something that we've actually been trying to do for a while, and then you actually were the one that came up with the idea for the security measures. Like, what interests you so much that you're like, you know what, we need to have a conversation on this?
Well, so when you were playing the live stream of the Lego Jurassic Park, something I believe it was the Joffrey Muldoon gatekeeper scene kind of just sparked something in my mind about the security and how it didn't work in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Like, I was shooting out the cameras, and I was talking about how, like, yeah, we have top-notch security where we actually incentivize shooting out the cameras.
Yeah.
Yes. So, like, dude, yeah, like, so that's a really funny little instance that was the thing that got you into this idea, because after you said we should do this, then going deeper into the subject, it's actually something that is very, very interesting and something that definitely warrants a conversation on. So I'm really glad that you came up with this idea and that we're able to do this today. And so, I mean, we'll just jump straight into it here, because there's so much to go over between Jurassic Park, Jurassic World. Then we also have the movies versus the books. Like, there's different security measures that we see in here. And so let's go ahead and start with Jurassic Park 1 and just start with the security measures that we know and see within Jurassic Park, and then later on we'll talk about why they failed. But so what were some of the security measures that we actually see in the original park there, Chaz?
Well, so we start out with that, fantastic opening sequence where they're transporting the raptor. Mm-hmm. And so we have this automated door into the raptor pen, but this gate is raised by hand,
right,
of this highly dangerous animal. And apparently the locking mechanism to attach the cage to the door while the gate was raised wasn't very strong, because as we saw what happened there with Joffrey. Right. And then Hammond mentions to Gennaro that the perimeter fencing is in place and the concrete moats and the motion sensor tracking system. John, the boy, relax.
Yes.
That whole thing, which we don't see a lot of in the film.
You're right. We don't see a lot of the motion sensors, but we do see not necessarily a full-on concrete moat, but we see a little bit of the different layers of the Tyrannosaur paddock, which has all of its own controversy, by the way.
The mysterious wall.
The mysterious wall, yes.
Yes.
And which actually does make sense. It's actually been broken down a couple times. Clayton Fioriti doing another fantastic video on it, but but I think that was actually meant to be kind of an example of the concrete moat, specifically not full on moat, but more like a full on wall. And then there's only the one viewing area to actually see the Tyrannosaur up close with the next to the fence. But yeah, I mean, like the concrete moats we didn't see very much of. I personally I can't remember at the moment seeing the motion sensor tracking systems. I mean, can you?
No, I don't even think they show it on the map when they're looking at like the perimeter fences going down. It doesn't even show any icons or anything for the dinosaurs. Yeah,
at least not to my knowledge. But I mean, hey, I'm gonna take Hammond's word for it, or at least, I mean, maybe he was just lying in order to tell the lawyer what he wanted to hear. But I mean, the idea is I have no reason to believe why that it would not be there. But either way, like the motion sensors, like that does provide something interesting, specifically talking about the motion sensors, because like when it comes to motion sensors, how do you think that would have been implemented into the park?
So the weird thing is that in the book it was based on like kind of like a photographic system where it would like take pictures of the individual dinosaurs so you could check and make sure that it was it was each individual dinosaur versus just like, it's picking up some movement.
Okay.
So yeah. I assume it would be something like that in the film.
Yeah. So more of like kind of like the lights that come on, whenever it senses motion, and but basically with a camera is kind of what you're saying. So like whenever it senses motion, then boom. Okay, then we gotta see what's going on.
Yeah, like kind of like trail cameras that they have, where like a motion
Yeah.
triggers it or something like that, just tied into the control room versus like going out and checking it.
That would make good sense. That would make good sense. But moving on then too, we also have other things that were made up in the original parks security systems as well. Isn't that right?
Yes. So some other things that we had were the locking systems inside of the control room, tied into the computer system, which Entry, uses this little back door to disable those.
Mm-hmm.
And then one thing about the tour specifically, and the security protocols on the tour, when they're going to the first paddock, which is the Dilophosaurus, there are signs that tell the guests essentially in the cars to keep their windows rolled up because the Dilophosaurus can spit venom.
I mean, the idea that they could roll down the window in the first place is a little ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I mean, 10, 15 minutes later when they're by the Triceratops and they all hopping out, Muldoon's like, we need locking mechanisms on the vehicle doors.
Yeah. Right.
It's just lawsuits abounding because, like, if this was an actual like, say you're in a wildlife preserve with like lions and dangerous predators like that,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just get out of the car unsupervised, there it's only guests in the car. It's a terrible way to do that.
Right. I mean, I think the key word there is unsupervised. Yes, you can have the cameras on them inside of the vehicle that we see Hammond looking at, and in order to see Malcolm mocking him in the first movie. But then, but I mean, like, so there are cameras inside, so the people at the control room can see that the guests are being taken care of and whatnot. But that doesn't mean anything because there's not a person in there to actually keep them from getting out of the vehicle at any given moment. And so I completely agree with you. Like, the fact that they did not put locking mechanisms on the vehicle doors is kind of ridiculous, but we also need to think about this is technically a technical rehearsal, right? So like, so Jurassic Park is not fully operational at this point. Like, this is supposed to be a technical rehearsal for them opening up the park later on. But because of what happened with Joffrey in the opening scene, they needed to push back their time frame of opening, and they needed to have some technical rehearsals with some professionals. So this through this whole technical rehearsal, they could have actually put the locking mechanisms on the vehicle doors in the future. I think what's actually more specific to make it look like a pretty big deal of oversight is actually specifically the stinking windows. I mean, the fact that you can roll down the windows at a whim, like, the people should be taken care of. They have AC inside of the vehicle. That should be okay, but I don't know. That's just my opinion on the door locks versus the windows. But then moving on, we brought up the idea a little bit of electric fencing. So like, there are different types of electric fences at different areas of the park. There's the thicker gauge stuff that we see around the perimeter fencing, as well as it looks similar, if not the same, as what the Tyrannosaur paddock actually has around it. And then, and like, you can tell that those are really thick cables that are used for the electrified fences, because like when they're being cut, when the T-Rex cuts it during the escape scene, like, you can hear the snapping and it goes pa-chow, pa-chow, like those things that are just flying by. It had to be under so much tension. It's so good, man. It's just, but also it just that the sound that it gives really shows like how thickly gauged these cables are. But then also going back to the Dilophosaurus paddock, it was just kind of like a regular thin, electrified fence. It was kind of funny to see that in comparison to the Tyrannosaur paddock. So like, what are like the different levels of electrified fences that we know of within Jurassic Park?
So with the Dilophosaurus, it is kind of just like a more standard, less thick electrified fence than the Rex paddock. You're right. And I think in like Jurassic World Evolution, the game, you get to see, you can make the light fence versus the heavy fence and stuff like that.
Right, exactly.
And then for some bizarre reason, in Jurassic Park 3 only, we have this, not only is it electrified with steel cables, it has steel or aluminum or something tubing on the outside reinforcing it, and a giant barrel of spikes on top of it.
Right, yeah, so that's not just barbed wire, that's thinking like somebody like wanted to make an entire medieval looking torture device on top of the fences.
But it makes you wonder, even assuming with the whole like 98 thing and the amalgam testing and all that, if they put those fences up then, which I doubt because they're kind of run down, we have this wonderful reinforced fence with all these extra measures if the electricity goes out. But in the theme park where the guests are, we just have electrified cables and that's it.
So, but yeah, I mean, the fences are just very fascinating to look at with Jurassic Park. But moving on though, we got to go to the Jurassic World movies too, because Jurassic Park obviously happened, and in the technical rehearsal from '93, everything went to crap. So then in Jurassic World, Masrani, when he was building the new park in order to open in 2005, well, actually he was trying to open up in 2004, but then it had to be pushed back to 2005. He wanted to try to undo all the problems and then like shore up his security that had failed from Jurassic Park, and then make Jurassic World a way better system. And honestly, he did do that. In Jurassic World, we see a lot of success. I mean, the park was successful from 2005 to 2015. 10 years of nothing going wrong. And so what do you think, what parts of the security specifically actually made Jurassic World so safe?
So the main thing was the implants that they gave every dinosaur at hatching, which not only tracked them, but also could send a kind of like the invisible fence thing that you could do for dogs, where if they go too far, it'll zap them, and then they'll stay in the area. It was similar to that. That, for one, each individual dinosaur is automatically tracked and controlled without like a camera or something like that, individually by itself in the park. And then we have walls. These exhibits are walled, steel walled, concrete walled with raising gates and everything like that. So the viewing platform and things like that. And then the fencing that we do see later on during like the gyrosphere adventure portion of the movie is just for the herbivores. And it doesn't even lead into where the guests are. It leads into other, restricted areas and things like that in the park. So if they got out, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Right.
But then also, I think another thing that really helped Jurassic World over Jurassic Park is a dedicated containment unit, the ACU, the Asset Containment Unit, compared to just regular park rangers, right? Like the way that we see Dr. Harding in the original Jurassic Park, he was a park ranger. He was, he kind of seemed like, like a park ranger that you would see for a national forest, like for a national park. Like they're out there, like they might have some good veterinary training, and they actually know how to interact with the animals, but they're not exactly there for 100% for containment. They're there for taking care of, and there's 100% a time and place for those people. You still need rangers, but the Asset Containment Unit is something that, like, not if, but when your dinosaurs get a little antsy or a little over the top and they cannot be handled just by the regular handlers, you send in the Asset Containment Unit, these people that are specifically trained to deal with dinosaur threats. I think that was also a huge part of the success of Jurassic World.
I agree. I mean, in Jurassic Park, we had Muldoon and his guns. We had I believe they were just Jurassic Park staff, all those guys in the beginning with the cattle prods and things.
Right.
And Jerry Harding, who has a tranquilizer dart gun that, he uses to tranquilize the Triceratops and stuff like that. But it's nothing on the level of the ACU, which they have. First off, they have a cool Mercedes truck, and it has 6 wheels on it.
Right. So automatically they're on a different plane already.
They're way cooler. And Muldoon's got socks, but they have 6 wheels.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he's also got those sweet shorts, though. So, I mean, he's close.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, that's right.
We have, let's see, they have a net launcher. They still use cattle prods, of course, but I mean, it's a pretty good technology for getting animals to do what you want.
Yep.
They have dart guns.
Yep, taser shotguns.
Oh yeah. They shoot the shotgun with the taser inside the shell, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
And I believe they had some of the kind of like the catch pulls with the noose on the end, like they had in the Lost World.
Yep. They've got that. They've got they've got cattle prods, they've got the taser shotguns, they've got tranquilizer guns. Yet they're very well equipped for dealing with dinosaurs in a non-lethal way. However, they also have a full-out armory, so they actually have tons of like actual weapons meant for destruction, meant for killing, and so they actually have lethals as well, including a stinking minigun, right, that we see in action later on. But
yes.
So like the ACU, it was definitely a trained force, almost on the level of a militia, right there within Jurassic World, in order to be able to help contain these dinosaurs.
Yeah, it's a really good idea to have appropriate staff in a sufficient quantity to deal with situations, regardless of what they are in your park. Not one guy with his high socks and short shorts.
Right. No matter how cool he might be.
He is really cool.
He is really cool, but unfortunately, coolness does not equal effectiveness. But then finally, though, like there's also some stuff. So we went over the Jurassic Park, the original park security, Jurassic World security, and then we also like there's and we will get to more in the downfall, all of the electronic stuff involved with all of this. But I think that the electronic stuff also, and the different lab experiments, like the different things that have to do with more technical things, has to do with a lot actually with the downfall of the park, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But also, finally, another component that many people don't often think about is the books. And you say you actually have teased it a little bit here and there throughout the conversation so far, but what do you see like specifically in the books that we don't get to see in the movies when it comes to security measures?
So the main thing that we don't see, I think, is that motion sensor tracking system that we talked about, which we actually get to see it in action, described how it's working in the book, and we get some statistics of this thing counting the dinosaurs in the park. And like I said before about the 90% that's covered in the 10% that's not. In the 10%, I believe it's Arnold says that when a dinosaur moves into that 10% area where it can't track it, which I believe is the volcanic area in the south region and the river, the tracking system will make a note of the dinosaur that it went into this area, and if it doesn't come out in a certain amount of time, it'll signal an alarm in the control room.
Is there a reason within the book that this 10% is not covered? Is it seriously just because of the volcanic activity, or is it because like they just couldn't go there in order to be able to set up any sensors?
Yeah, so the volcanic activity, I think it's there's a lot of like geothermal steam and stuff that interferes with it, and then the river, it's something about I can't think of the word right now. It's like the reactivity of the surface of the water, and like the way it moves and causes static and stuff.
Okay.
Excuse me, that doesn't allow it to track the dinosaurs there.
Very cool. Very cool. Wow. Dude, you really know your stuff. I just got to say that quick. I mean, you really know your stuff. So, but the motion tracking system and the whole network is really the one major unique thing that we see in the books that's not in the movies. Is that correct?
Yes, we get a little bit more of the moats, like Grant and the kids have to go down into a moat and climb up the other side to cross it. But other than that, we don't get too much more. There's near the end of the book, spoilers for everyone who hasn't read it, sorry, they do find some gas grenades. That's like a nerve agent that was hidden in an area. They don't use them, but that's like kind of like a Hammond's contingency plan.
These security measures, they sound good, they sound formidable, but in the end, both Jurassic Park, the original, and Jurassic World, the subsequent park, both of them failed, and for different reasons, maybe similar, but they are different. So let's go ahead and figure out how did these security measures fail. And so let's first talk about Jurassic Park. Chaz, how did all of these major, incredible, expensive security measures fail and ultimately lead to the demise of Jurassic Park?
All right, let's get into this. So the main thing is man's hubris, specifically John Hammond in the case of the first park, but just generally speaking across the whole franchise. Now, what the problem was is they relied too heavily on each individual security measure believing that it was 100% foolproof and that they didn't need anything else. So like with the motion sensors, the reason why they didn't know the dinosaurs were breeding was because they had the set number that they made and had it count to that number and let them know if any were missing. They never thought to put a couple extra in case any showed up.
Interesting.
So things like that. So the electrified fencing, well, we have all this fencing, the electricity won't ever go down. Well, the electricity went down, and even though in the middle of the book they kind of get the park back up and running, they don't really go over this in the movie. In the movie, the power just kind of goes out, and then they have to reset the system.
Right.
So you have moats, you have motion sensor tracking systems, you have the electrified fencing, which relies on electricity, and you have the lysine contingency, which I don't believe we've talked about yet.
We haven't actually, and that is honestly one of the biggest things that is mentioned in both the book and the movies.
Yes. The funny thing is, though, is that wouldn't actually work. Like
You explain.
creating this faulty enzyme. I don't remember where I heard it. It might have been Clayton or some other biology type video or something like that. But you even doing that, the body would still either produce enough, or like in the books, how they how they do it in the books is that like the dinosaurs that make it to the mainland and stuff. Sarah Harding says in the Lost Worlds film that they're eating agma beans, soy, things high in the amino acid lysine, and they keep on living.
Right.
So that's just another thing where they put something in place but didn't think that there were ways around it, and they just relied on that,
Right. And to be honest, like Dr. Wu's idea for the lysine contingency, it sounds genius. In fact, actually, when you're watching Jurassic Park, if anybody that's listening to this right now if you can remember back to when you first watched Jurassic Park and you hear about the lysine contingency, it almost sounds like something peripheral, like you can almost ignore it, but you're paying attention enough to it, just enough to go like, wow, they really did think this through. But you end up realizing the lysine contingency, there were workarounds, with the dinosaurs, the herbivores eating lysine-rich plants, and then the carnivores eating the herbivores, like Sarah Harding says, like you said, in The Lost World, and so on and so forth. Lysine contingency not being a good option for these, not being a good option for InGen because there's workarounds. But what you're saying is that, or the same dedication of trust to the lysine contingency is basically the hubris that led to the downfall of Jurassic Park that can be applied to every aspect of their security measures. Like they thought too highly of themselves in order to think that they could fail. Yeah,
that's correct. Like if for example, how we had talked about the fencing on Sorna with all the barbed spikes and things like that. If they had added maybe, barbed wire or something to the fences, not that would stop a Tyrannosaurus Rex, but it might deter it a little more than just a fence with no electricity running through it when the power went out.
Right. But the park could have survived longer than it did if Hammond actually had dealt with his issue of the programmer, specifically Dennis Nedry. The one major thing, and actually he admits it, he realizes it, John Hammond does in the movie, the failure that he had, too much automation came back to one person, giving that person way too much power over the rest of the inner workings of the entirety of the security measures for Jurassic Park. And because Hammond did not pay Nedry enough in Nedry's eyes, Nedry decided to betray Hammond. And so that's ultimately where the issue happens in the original Jurassic Park. That's ultimately where we see the hubris and the lacking security measures collide together.
Yeah, so with Nedry, one of my favorite lines in Jurassic Park, I think it might even be my favorite, is Hammond says, he even admits that our lives are in your hands. He's like, Dennis, our lives are in your hands and you have butterfingers? I love the way he says that.
Right.
He put everything on this one programmer, and he paid him the original fee for creating the system and then had him work overtime and didn't pay him for it, and just constantly demanded, and it's all on this one guy. And of course this guy, who's not getting paid for all this extra work, is approached by another company, Biosyn. Dodgson offers him, what was it, like
I think 1.5 million, is that correct?
1.5, 1.7, somewhere around there, yeah. And of course he's going to take it. You're overworking this guy. You don't, show him any respect or appreciate what he's doing for you, and you're not even paying him for it.
So
And
ultimately, it leads to distrust, to backbiting, and eventual betrayal.
yeah, and then your entire parks fails, and a lot of people die.
Yep. And so all of that, to bring it around to, this park fails mainly because of, well, John Hammond, the very brainchild of it.
Yeah, he, he's a venture capitalist. The whole reason he did this was he was out to make money, and he cut corners to save money and just implemented one tracking system, one electrified fence for a deterrent. These moats that clearly didn't do anything in neither the movie nor the books to stop these dinosaurs. They were everywhere once the electricity went out, and he put all the control into one man, who he treated badly. Yeah, it all leads back to John Hammond and the way he ran this park.
Yep. When you break it all down like we are right now, you realize just how much of a greedy, messed up man he really was. But JP, the downfall can really lead back to John Hammond himself. But Jurassic World, ironically, it goes back to its concept, its person who brought it into existence in the first place as well, was Ronnie, which is actually kind of weird. It's not the same reason. Because Jurassic World, like I said earlier, 10 years Jurassic World actually succeeded compared to Jurassic Park not even making it out of its trial phase. But with Jurassic World was operational, had tons and tons, thousands, hundreds of thousands of guests come through its doors over the years, and yet it still fails. And it failed because of a different reason, a different greed, a different type of hubris and flaw. And that really comes down to the Indominus Rex.
Oh, certainly. The Indominus Rex. Such a bad idea from the get-go. The problem with that, too, is that Vic Hoskins at one point says, Masrani's got his fingers in so many things, he doesn't know what half of his companies do. And that kind of leads into the creation of the Indominus, because between him and Claire, we need to bring in some more revenue. Ticket sales are slacking a little bit, and so he sends out a memo to Dr. Wu, and he's like, I want it bigger, scarier, more teeth. And Wu, who's clearly working for InGen and his own personal game and scientific creation and notoriety and stuff like that, adds some stuff. And the people who run this park, mainly the day-to-day of Claire and the man who owns it, he's the CEO of this park, has no idea what's inside of this dinosaur. And Claire even says to Owen, it's got, some T-Rex is the base genome and the rest is classified. Yeah, she has no idea how smart this animal is. Owen talks about all the behavioral problems that it's going to have being, raised the way it is. And they have no idea how smart it is. This thing's already broken the glass in the view area. Then later on, when things start to happen in Jurassic World, the film, we have the claw marks. And they just assume that it escaped. And before even checking, later Claire calls on the phone and has Lowry and them check to where the Indominus is. There's 2 InGen workers and Owen inside of the exhibit while the Indominus is still there?
Right. That's just, it's dumb. They created a monster that was beyond it was beyond their understanding. It was pushing the envelope of what they had already done in order to make these huge genetic leaps already. Because they had already made genetic leaps in order to create dinosaurs, and then they had already made these incredible leaps and bounds with security-wise in order to keep these dinosaurs safe and keep people safe from the dinosaurs. But you had to go and create a new dinosaur. All that to say, I mean, we can really peg down Jurassic Park and Jurassic World being brought down by human hubris. And honestly, that's kind of like the point of what, even going back to the books, Michael Crichton was trying to make, is just that human ingenuity and human ambition does have moral limits. And when you try to do things just for the sake of doing things, rather than trying to actually fix a problem or create something that's going to be beneficial, you literally just do something because you wonder if you can. Human ambition can cross over into self-destruction, and it honestly is perfectly exuded with 1993's Jurassic Park and 2015's Jurassic World. And yeah, I think human hubris, human greed human immorality is really the thing that brings down these two parks.
Yeah, that's right. That's basically what it comes down to. And Michael Crichton wrote a lot of his books really as cautionary tales. Here's a new technology, genetics at the time, just the consequences of what might happen if people just do something and don't stop and think about whether or not they should, like Malcolm says.
Right. You have to have moral limits and understand what is actually good for us and what is going into selfish ambition. But Chaz, unfortunately, that's all the time that we've got today. We definitely did a very deep dive into the security measures of Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, and honestly, this has been a fantastic and fascinating conversation for me. I'm so thankful that that you came up with this idea. But before we go, Chaz, are there any final words that you want to say?
If you're going to build a dinosaur theme park, have a couple of fail-safes. Right. Make sure that you actually are not just thinking like, oh, we've got this figured out. Actually go like, you know what? We need a plan B, C, D, E, F. We need to make sure that we have things in place in order to actually counter all of the things in place. So, but all that to say, Mr. Chaz, where can people find you in order to be able to follow what you're doing on social media? So Instagram is the main place for my sort of Jurassic stuff. Cretaceous.creations is my Instagram. You can find me there. I have links to my letterbox if you're interested in my movie reviews on there. And that's an easy way to get into contact with me and see what I'm doing.
Wonderful, wonderful. So make sure to check out Chaz on Instagram, Cretaceous.creations. I got those two words mixed up there, but yeah, Cretaceous.creations. Make sure to check out Chaz and reach out to him if you just want to know more about different Jurassic stuff that he's really involved with. But then also, if you feel like we deserved it, if you enjoyed this video today, please subscribe to Dino Park Media. We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers, and any support that we can get in that helps us immensely. But also, we are super grateful because it just encourages us to continue putting out content that hopefully people out there can enjoy, that are Jurassic fans and not just dinosaur fans in general. But guys, thank you so much for watching this video. We hope that you have a great rest of your day, and before we go, we hope that you know you are loved.